Hello, everyone, for what is the second time to me. Uh, I'm sure you all find this funny. I just went for like the first 5 minutes and I didn't realize I didn't start streaming. I was doing all my transitions and the intro and everything, and I didn't actually start the stream. So, if you're wondering what the holdup was, I was actually on time today. I was just broadcasting to myself. So, I guess I'll go over again what we're going to be doing today. If you remember in the last stream I did, where we were just kind of like hanging out and chatting. We were talking about the Igus bushings, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to put. I got them out. We're going to put the original linear bearings back in the y-axis, and I'm going to run with them for a while. And the reason I'm doing this is just that I want like a complete perspective on the Igus bushings. To see how I feel about them, to see, now that I've put, I would guess between, it's hard to tell exactly, because I think I have about 1,000 hours on my machine of print time now, and I would guess probably 800 of that was with the Igus bushings. So I want to put a few hundred hours on it with the original linear bearings, now that I know how I feel about the bushings. And just compare that to how these perform. Because I think at first my perspective was kind of not worthwhile, because I was new to printing. So those first 150 to 200 hours, I was just kind of like, I was just a noob. So I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know how I felt about things. And now that I have a good bit of printing time on the machine, I want to throw these back on, run with them for a little bit, and see how they perform compared to the Igus bushings. We're also going to be, when we break the machine down, see, this feels weird to me. I already talked about it. I was preheating the machine at the beginning of the non-stream, and we pulled the filament out, and now it's cooling down. And I wanted to touch on an error that I get occasionally if my machine is actually turned off, and it's that min temp error that you can get. And I get it because my basement's cold, and apparently the machine doesn't like getting below about 16 degrees Celsius. That seems to throw an error on the hot end for some reason. So what I end up doing when that happens is I just actually grab that aluminum heat block and squeeze it for maybe 30 seconds or so until I see the temperature reach about 17 degrees Celsius, and then do a reset, and the machine seems to be fine. But yeah, so there's that for the second time. So what we're doing now is waiting for the machine to cool down. And I also mentioned, if you ever have your machine at temperature, make sure you allow it to cool down and allow that extruder fan to blow over the heatsink until it shuts off itself. Don't shut it off, because that can cause you some problems with your hot end. And like I also mentioned, the setups, if you see me looking like stage left over here, it's because the computer and stuff's over there. I did have the desk, like we were experimenting with a different setup, and it just didn't work well for things like this, where I kind of need some space to work. Like, the desk didn't work, so the desk is shifted. The kind of secondary set over there is essentially done. But as far as everybody is concerned today, like, this is going to more or less look like the old setup. The old setup from like a month ago. Aaron said Joseph joined the Slack last night. I wonder how they feel about that. They seemed, some of the, like the original group seemed kind of like lukewarm about the idea, but I think it's gotten enough traction that people are starting to take it a little more seriously. Yeah, Aaron will hook you guys up with the link. If you have an MK2, it's a fantastic resource, because there's tons of experienced people in there. If you ever have any questions, there'll be, almost 24 hours a day, there's people on, so there will be somebody there that can point you in the right direction, more than likely. But yeah, hi guys, hi Aaron, hi Dean, hi Audio, Sparky, Josh. Nice to have the space. Yeah, it's, I wish I had a little bit more space. Like, I would guess this is It's not as deep as I'd like. It's probably 15 feet by about 25 feet. And, like, I'm not complaining, but I wish I had a little bit more space. And I wish the ceiling was a little bit higher. It kind of, like, makes me have problems getting good camera angles because, like, right above here is just, like, open flooring and stuff that looks terrible. So it makes the camera angles a little weird sometimes. I wish I could pull back and, yeah, have, like, 7-foot ceilings instead of, like, the 6.5-foot ceilings we have down here. But, yeah, you got to work with what you have. I mean, that's just kind of the way life is. But, so it sounds like our machine's cooled down, so we're going to shut it down and move it over here. Nice little compact unit. Let me think briefly what we're going to need here. Basically, all we're going to have to do is... let me get things situated. If we look on our secondary camera here, we're going to come down here, disconnect the belt block, so we're not taking the belt off, and then we're going to snip the zip ties on the front smooth rods, which will allow us to basically slide the entire bed assembly off. And that'll be our first goal here. So we'll go ahead and do that. And, like, normally if you do this, you won't have to take the bed completely off, like I'm going to have to do. What causes me to have to do that is that we installed bearing holder blocks, and the bolts are actually down through the top of the aluminum X plate, so we actually have to take this whole assembly off, take the heat bed off. And I mean, you could probably do it without doing that, but it'll just make it easier to let everyone see what's going on if we do it that way. So we'll take these screws out of the bottom of the heat bed that hold that belt block on. All right, so that's out. Now we're going to cut the zip ties on our front smooth rods. These fellows right here, like this guy. Did I print a spare belt holder before I did this? No, I didn't. I didn't actually. But I don't think it'll be an issue. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I don't think it'll cause us any problems. I don't intend on breaking that. I know that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, but but that wasn't part of the plan. I got a little fuzz on my fan here. Make sure you keep that cleaned off. So we're going to pop the smooth rods up. Just firm, gentle pressure. And then you can actually just slide the rods forward out of the rear zip ties. And we'll go ahead and slide the rods out. Move this up a little bit. We're just gonna slide these rods out. All right, and there you can see, minus the cables at the back of the machine, our heat bed assembly is free. Let's kind of get this over to the side out of the way. And we'll actually bring the heat bed out through the back. And I'm just going to pull that link out of the back of the thing there, because we're going to try to leave all the chains and stuff on. So we'll flip our heat bed over, and you can kind of see these blocks I was talking about. Normally the bearings are just zip tied to the plate, but you can see we actually printed out some nice little holders that hold it a little more substantially. Josh said he was a little confused as everyone was basically singing the praises of the Igus bushings. Um, I still think it's like part of it you have to realize, like, part of it is that some of us are tinkerers at heart, and no matter how things are, like, we'll always be tinkering to a certain extent. But part of it is that I've developed a little bit of a wiggle in my y-axis, and I'm not saying that the bushings have worn or anything prematurely, uh, but I've been wanting to throw, like I said, now that I have a little more experience, I've been wanting to throw these back in to compare the performance of the bushings with the linear bearings. I mean, like, what I'm doing right now isn't something I'd recommend anybody does. I just want to do it because I'd like to do a video here in the near future about how I feel about the Igus bushings now that I have, I don't know, like I said, probably 800 hours of print time on them. And I just want to, like, kind of temper that perspective with a little more experience with the original bearings to see how they compare. Because I think one of the biggest reasons that people end up making the change is because of noise. And again, like I discussed in the other video, we're going to take the heat bed off now. It's a little dark over here. Let me adjust this camera. But like I talked about in the other video, I, like a noob, didn't really properly lubricate the original ball bearings, and I have a feeling that was contributing to, like, the amount of noise that my machine was making. So I got some proper lubricant today, and we're going to throw these back in, lube them up, and then, like I said, I'll put probably another 200 hours or so on these bearings in the bed and see how they compare. I'd like to get a decibel meter. I'm trying to get one so I can do some actual, like, objective tests on, like, noise levels. So we're just taking these corner bolts out, and that'll allow us to remove this plate, which will allow us to get to the top of these bushing holders. But one thing I want to do while we have this apart is see if these bushings have worn at all. So there, our plate is free. And just for further future reference, the two bearings are on the same side as the connector on the heat bed. So we have two bearings and the connector on that side. And you can see these screws come down through the top. That's the reason we had to disassemble this. Normally, you just have to, like, basically get your plate free, clip the zip ties on the bushings that are already in there, or the bearings, and then replace, put whatever you want in, and put some new zip ties in. All right, but anyway, let's get this apart. I don't have my small screwdriver, hopefully. Oh, this is fine. So we'll do this off of that PCB so we don't crack it or do anything stupid. But we're just going to take the mount screws out for these things. Hopefully without stripping them. Is this screwdriver... Ah, I see my little one. I was going to say, this screwdriver's a little bit big. But as far as, like, the Igus bushings in general, you can see I have them... I still have them on my x-axis, and I think they're fantastic there. Like, I have, if you grab this whole assembly, there is essentially no wiggle. Like, the tolerances are very good. But in this y-axis, I guess I should have shown you before I did started disassembling this. There was a little bit of a wiggle. There was a little bit of up and down wiggle and a little bit of side to side that I don't really remember being there before. And that's the reason I want to take these off and kind of compare these ones that I've been using with some brand new ones that I have and see what the tolerances on the smooth rods are. to see if they've actually worn at all. And if anybody remembers when we did this installation, these bolts kind of make me laugh. These were all too long, so I cut them with a Dremel tool. People were worried that I was going to cut my fingers off. But I still have all 10. Still good. All right, one more and then we're free. And we'll take a look at the tolerances on these. I have some new ones of each type. So now that we have the smooth rods off, I'd like to take a look and see what the tolerances are on each type and see if there's any difference. Because if you remember on the stream I did last, there seemed to be slight tolerance differences between the different, I guess, bushing types on the little sample anodized aluminum rod that I guess sent me in the little care package. I also have some gloves here that I'm going to put on since we're going to be working with lubricant. And it'll make it a little easier to see the things I'm holding. I got these for doing some airbrushing, but I've been using them for a lot of stuff. It's nice, like, not getting your hands all jacked up all the time. Yeah, I plan on using the holders for the replacements just because there's, I don't know, like the kind of engineer in me prefers them to the zip ties because there's a lot less room for like wiggle. They really do hold the bushings nice. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and try to use those. So let's take a look at these. And get the camera in a position here. So here we have our smooth rod. It's fairly clean. And let's take our old bushings here. And see how they fit on the rods. Oh, I just broke the damn holder. Son of a bitch. Just broke that one too. Son of a bitch. Shit. But anyway. The tolerances still seem okay. I know it's a little tough to see. They wiggle a little bit. So that one wiggles a little bit. This one wiggles a little bit. Nothing like alarming. And this one seems to wiggle a little bit more than the last two did, actually. So I think they have started to wear a little bit. And I don't think, because of this material, I don't think any of the material is actually wearing away. It might just be like the material where it's compressing a tiny little bit. But these do wiggle. Now let's compare that to... Oh, yeah. This is a brand new... These are the RJ4JPs. These definitely have worn. This is a nice snug fit on the rod. So these have definitely worn. This one doesn't wiggle basically at all. And we'll check the other end of the rod. Snug fit. And let's check the other rod just for... see the machining consistency. Yeah, this doesn't really wiggle at all. So these have worn with about 800 hours of print time. I don't know if you can hear that, but they do wiggle. The tolerances are a little looser. And I wonder, if you look at these, they have kind of that serrated inner design there. And I've always been curious like these encased ones are smooth, like they don't have any serrations. It's basically solid plastic in there. And I'd always wondered if they functioned any differently. Because these don't fit quite as snugly as the brand new RJ4JP. But they don't wiggle as much as the ones that we just took off the machine. And then these ones actually feel basically perfect. The RJ MPs. They slide like perfectly with almost no friction, and they don't really wiggle at all. So, yeah, that's all kind of interesting to know. Now let's compare that to these original linear bearings, because like I said, I don't really recall how these fit. These have like a similar wiggle to the worn Igus. I think they wiggle a little bit less. Yeah, like Aaron said, we didn't break these completely. Just like an idiot. I don't know. I guess they, as long as we can get the pieces back in without cranking on them too much and breaking them the rest of the way, they should be okay. Yeah, damn it. Damn it. I was going to say, like, I could reprint some other ones and replace them once I reprinted other ones, but then we have to disassemble the whole thing again because the bolts are coming down through the top of the freaking plate. So like I said, I actually did get some lube. I've had several people recommend this. It looks blue on the cam, but this is actually like a teal bottle. This is the 3-in-1 with PTFE. And I was just kind of curious. Like I said, I never really lubed these linear bearings at all. So I was curious if actually lubricating them properly was going to make any difference as far as like noise or anything. I'm kind of thinking no. I'm kind of thinking it won't. Let me grab a paper towel. I'm honestly thinking it won't really make much difference as far as the vibration, because this is a you see it's like very watery. It's a very thin lubricant. So I don't think it's really going to like help reduce movement of the balls inside the actual bearing that is causing some of those vibration noises during fast movements. But yeah, I don't know. They do really move nice on the rods. I do have to say that. I mean, you can see they have very little resistance. But anyway, we'll go ahead and lube the insides of these bearings. I guess I'll just pick 3 of them out of here. Does it, Faran asked, does it really make a lot of difference which bushings you use? I think it can. I think it is something that matters. And that's basically what this quest for me is all about, is to kind of figure out what does work best. Because I think these linear bearings work fantastically. It's just that some people, like myself included, had issues with the noise. And we're going to be a little heavy-handed with this lubricant here initially, and then I'll wipe these down. But I just want to make sure that we get this and coat all of those little balls inside. Just be a little heavy-handed. Make sure we articulate all those inside. Do the next one. Make sure we're not putting like a bad bearing on here. But these all seem to run really well. But we'll go ahead and do this, and then we'll wipe off all of this excess lubricant off of everything. And then we can, once we have everything back together, we can very lightly lubricate the rods and stuff. Yeah, like Aaron was saying, I think there is some room for improvements. Uh, like on the x-axis there with all the zip ties. I know Aaron has designed some parts that replace them and use a non-zip tie restraint method. But I think some of the areas I don't really see as an issue with the zip ties, and then there's other ones where I think there is room for improvement. And the heat bed area is one of those places. I think there is a better way to go about holding these bearings or bushings, whatever you're going to put in there. I think there's a better way to do it than the zip ties. Because one of the problems is, and it doesn't really cause a big issue, but like you don't want movement where you don't want movement. And let me wipe my hands off here. One of the things I noticed during assembly is that the bushings or bearings sit in these little things here, and there's room for them to shift around a little bit. And I don't think it really causes a problem because, it's in line with the axis, so it doesn't really cause any problems. But it's not ideal in my opinion. And it's the reason I went ahead and printed these guys out. But let me make sure I have all this oil off my hands before we move forward here. But you see, even with the holders, this isn't that big of a job, really. And I believe the bolts are going down through here, so the actual bushings will be on this side. And like I said, we're going to try to get these in here without breaking these holders any further, if at all possible. I mean, if worse comes to worse, we'll zip tie these back in, but... So there we got one in. That might not have been one of the broken ones. And we'll just slide them in from the side and use as little force as possible. Get a wiggle. There we go. I think we'll be all right. And the last one here. There we go. No big deal. All right, so we'll kind of locate these. And I'll just get one of these screws started in each. Some of these, the manufacturing on some of these plates seems to differ. The powder coating on mine, I guess I'll go ahead and start these from the other side. The powder coating on my X plate was a little thick. Because apparently for some people, these screws don't actually thread into the plate itself, but mine actually do. I can't push them through the holes. So your experience doing this might be a little bit different. Where did I get the bearing holders from? They're off of Aaron's page. I don't know if he wants to link that, he can. I forget which site that is on. It might be his Tinkercad profile. No, Joseph, are you talking about me? Because I'm not really blaming anything on anything. But I think it's pretty clear that when I compare the bushings that were on here to a brand new one, they've pretty obviously worn. The tolerances are definitely... You can see this one kind of grips... A brand new one grips the rod a little bit. And then the one that's been on the machine has a little bit of wiggle. But like I said, it's basically identical to the wiggle that the default linear bearings have. So I don't really see it as an issue. Just something to note. But no, I'm not blaming anything on anything. But I do think there's probably a reason that Prusa is recommending against installing these. And I wish they would comment a little bit more on why exactly. Like if there's been issues that they've seen users have with these. I'd really be curious to see what the deal is there. But like that, Joseph, if well, like I get what you're saying, Joseph, but just because you haven't had any issues doesn't necessarily mean uh it's something that disappoints me a little bit with the 3D printing groups in general. Your experience is not necessarily the experience that everyone else is going to have, and you do kind of always have to keep that in mind. Uh, I'm not saying it means nothing, but it doesn't mean everything what your experience is necessarily. So we'll get these in here, and you see that the holders are nice, especially printed out in orange that matches the printer. But they hold things nice. The bearing itself is still pressed up against this channel, so ultimately, like, that is what is aligning it. The holder isn't really aligning it at all. It's just holding it against the plate, as opposed to having a zip tie do that job. But no, like I said, it could just be the case that basically the inner surfaces of those bushings are polished now, which compresses that initial layer of material, and they might not really wear beyond that much. You know, it'd be interesting to see somebody that's, like, I know you've said you've used them for years. It'd be interesting to see some of these bushings that have been on a machine for several years and see what they look like. Because I know, like you were saying, these rods eat the IGUS bushings up. I know you can get higher quality rods than these smooth rods that come with the machine. Like, you can get hardened, polished ones. These ones do have a little bit of like, they almost feel like anodized. Like, they look like they're chromed. Maybe they're just polished. I don't know. But I've definitely seen smooth rods. But no, like always, I just share, like, what's going on with me and share my experiences with things. So make of it what you will. Super Chat is the new... It's like a new thing that YouTube is doing that allows you to... depending on what stream you're in, you can, like, basically make a donation with a message, and it'll pin that message to the top of the chat for a while. So, like I said, depending on your intentions, it allows you to support someone, or basically pay to be a more effective troll. So that's what Super Chat is. And I just enabled it. I don't really... It's like anything. I really don't care if anybody donates or does anything. I'm always going to do what I do, regardless of whether or not somebody pays me. It lets me do it a little bit more if people donate, but no, it's never really a requirement. This one doesn't want to line up with the piece for some reason. Get in there, screw. There we go. And we're almost done here, so we'll throw this back together. But I am really curious to see what the noise levels are, because I can vaguely remember the noise before. And, like, I'm down here in my basement, and our floors, like the ceiling in the basement, isn't insulated all that well. I mean, it's not insulated at all in some areas. Like, right above me here isn't insulated at all. And the noise on certain prints was no joke. The noise is real. And that's why I was saying earlier, like, some people, their experiences just seem to differ, because some people say they basically have no noise issues at all with this printer, and then other people seem to have kind of experience like me, where depending on what you're printing, the noise can be I hesitate to say excessive. Like, I don't want people to think it's worse than it actually is, but it was definitely noticeable. Like, I could hear it upstairs. I couldn't really run the printer at night without doing something. Like, I've talked before how I set up like a folding table tent over the printer to kind of deaden the noise a little bit. Bjorn asked, did I orient the bearings? I did not. That probably would be a good idea. But I would imagine they're not too bad. Because part of the problem is when you tighten them down, there really isn't much room for adjustment. They seem to work okay. I guess I could loosen these up and try to shift them a little bit. But that's part of the problem with this. Because they're pressed along these flat areas on that channel, ultimately this plate is going to orient them. I guess that is potentially one advantage of the zip ties, is that they actually, because they don't hold the bushings all that tightly, they allow them to orient a little more easily. So there you can see that doesn't work bad at all. So we'll just snug this up until it kind of causes problems. And we're just adjusting the tension on these so they're not ridiculously tight. Still good. We don't seem to have any wobble in the rod. Like if I try to move the rod side to side or up and down. But just there, it definitely makes noise. It definitely makes noise because, like, with the IGUS in there, you wouldn't hear that at all, moving that rod. And like I said, it varies depending on what you're printing. The worst are very fast, short movements, like tight infill. Like if you're running 60% infill on something and there's a bunch of tiny little grid work that it has to do, your printer is definitely going to be making some noise. Those were the worst for me. And being that this is like an aluminum plate on kind of like a rigid flat thing, it does act as like a little bit of a resonator, as does the surface the printer's on, depending on what you have it on. That's why some people recommend getting like a concrete paver. Like I was at Lowe's last night looking at like ceramic tile for floor, and I was actually going to get some. They had some marble sheets that were about 10 inches by I think 18 inches, which fits the lower chassis of the printer fairly well. Because you see the support feet actually aren't that far apart. That's maybe what, like 8 or 9 inches if I had to guess, and then probably, I don't know, 12 or 13 inches from back to front. And that's the only contact surface you really need to worry about. So that's why some people do that. Super chat's not enabled on this stream. I think it is. It is to me anyway. It could be the case that you need something enabled on your account. Like you might need some payment method enabled on your account. The dot is here in this corner right there, which, if I'm not mistaken, goes towards the corner with the connector, if I remember everything correctly. So now we're going to install the heat bed again. And this is a place that I kind of goofed a little bit during the initial assembly. You want to make sure, like, we're going to start these bolts, and then before we tighten them, we're going to be a little methodical about it, because we want to make sure that this plate is drawn tightly against all of these corners. Otherwise, you might run into some issues with your heat bed not being flat. Because I know some people have that issue, and I still have that issue to a certain extent, but the bulk of it was actually from me not having these bolts bottomed out properly. It wasn't actually the heat bed itself. So we'll get those started. And we got one more. But the key is to press these together tightly. Like you want to be pressing this aluminum plate against your heat bed plate pretty firmly as you tighten these down to make sure there's no space in between this aluminum plate and that little riser that this bolt screws into. And you do not want to over tighten these, because if you strip those little risers out, that's kind of a problem. Because if you turn it over, they actually come down through the top. I know it's not focused there, but they actually come down through the top, and these bolts are under the PEI sheet. So if you'd have to replace one of these, you'd end up having to peel your PEI. You'd at least have to peel a corner back, which I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that. I don't really know if that's even an option, really. But it's easiest just to not strip these out. So yeah, just firm them up. You don't really want to make them too tight. And same deal. I know we already started these, but I'm just going to back it out a little bit. Make sure the plate and the riser are pressed together firmly. And then snug it up. And I'll visually inspect all these before we put this back on the machine. It's a little tough to fix. You can adjust these while the bed's on the machine, but it's a little awkward. So that one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. And they all look good. All right, so we'll rotate this back around. Kind of orient our chains properly. We can snap these links back in place. And we'll just kind of loosely get this in position. Nope, our cable chain is rotated the wrong way, actually. There we go. So we'll get that approximately in position, and now we'll wipe our rods off again. Just make sure there's nothing, no dirt or residue. Like, see when I wipe these, there is a little bit of dirt on there. So make sure these are clean. And then slide them back in. John, we already did that. When I tightened them down, I had the rod in while I was doing the final tightening. Bjorn, I've seen people say that to make sure the balls are aligned properly. I can still do that. You're probably right, but I've seen conflicting information about that. The tolerances are actually decent enough. It looks like 2 of these were dead on, and basically the other one was all but dead on. And it looks fine now, actually. But they were actually quite good. Let me get some pliers and rotate that one a little bit. You are right, though. It probably doesn't hurt. What he's saying is there's 4 traces of balls, or 4 tracks of balls that are on opposite sides of the bearings. You have one on the top, one on the bottom, and then one on the left and right. And what you want to do is make sure that the at least one, well, they're going to orient to each other, but one of those is on the very top, so that basically the weight is riding on one of those tracks of balls. Maybe not. Wait, work that way. There we go. They're aligned perfectly. And like I said, we already made sure everything is copacetic as far as like the alignment when I was tightening the blocks up. So like I said, we'll get this roughly back in place. You should be a little careful. I'm getting this lubricant on the heat bed a little bit, which we'll have to make sure we clean off good. Get that in place. We'll ease our rods in. Looks like I got some dust on that one again. And then set that more or less in place. And then bring the machine back to us. And basically we're just going to do what we did in the beginning, but in reverse. You can see we left the zip ties in the back here. And all we're going to want to do is go to the front. Kind of push them down in place. And then we'll just pop this zip tie up over the end of that. And it saves us... I mean, zip ties are inexpensive, but it saves you clipping them off the back for what it's worth. So our rods are in place in the rear. And we'll press them down here in the front. There we go. Pop them in. We won't put zip ties in there right now. Oh, that definitely makes more noise. That absolutely makes more noise rolling like that. I'm interested to see how loud it is. And then we'll come back under here and do the last part. Remember we took our belt block off. We'll just have to line that back up. I actually left the bolts in it. So there the bolts kind of orient themselves to the holes. And we'll get our wrench. And it's a little tough holding this. Because this is kind of the same way. You want to make sure this is pressed against the heat bed. Which is a little difficult to do. Without a third hand. This is ridiculous. All right, there. So I got that bolt pressed in. And we'll try to get in here. Get this first one started. Michael, that's a pretty common thing to do. Like, I know a lot of people, if you are going to do the IGUS or go the IGUS route, it's definitely easier to do it during your initial installation than it is to come back and do it later. That's pretty common. I know now that people, and again, don't take anything I say as gospel. I'm always just like trying to discuss the information that's available. But I do know that Prusa has started recommending that people don't do that. And like I said, I'm just kind of like curious why exactly that is. I wish they would do like a press release or something similar to that. I know Aaron said that Joseph joined the Slack group. Hopefully, hopefully their intentions for doing that are good. Hopefully they're doing that to engage with the people there, and hopefully it's not just to like basically keep an eye on what's going on in the community for their own purposes. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone's asked on there about it, like what the official position is. Well, not only what it is, but why it is, I think is the more interesting piece of information. Because I could kind of see them recommending that people don't do it just because it's like another thing that's going to cause them to provide support for, like even if it's just like the chat-based support. So I can kind of understand it from that perspective. And if it's not just that, I'd be interested to see like what things have actually happened that caused them to have the position they do. So I just like to have more information if it's available. So I wish they would give us a little bit more information. So there, everything is reassembled. The one thing we're going to do now, I think is important. I'm going to take... Well, actually, one more thing before we go to that step. I'm going to actually lubricate these rods a tiny little bit. And Aaron, I know Aaron uses this lube, but yeah, John, that's exactly what, like John just said, Prusa doesn't want lots of support calls. I could absolutely see that being one of the primary reasons they recommend doing essentially any upgrade. I mean, ideally they'd have you, or ideally from their perspective, they have you buy the machine and use it as is and you know, basically shut the hell up and don't bother them. So I could definitely see that potentially being a reason they wouldn't want you like doing various things. But I'm just I put a little bit of that lubricant on this paper towel and I'm going to rub it on these rods a little bit. And that's why I was going to ask Aaron, like, or anybody, you guys that have lubricated these before, like how exactly you do it. Because this is a very thin lubricant and I don't want to get it everywhere. But I know with this initial installation, like we do want to make sure they're lubricated well. All right, that seems good. So we'll set the lubricant away, off to the side. And again, if anybody was curious and didn't see earlier, this is just 3-in-1 PTFE lubricant that I got at Lowe's. I think this bottle was like $3.49 and will last me basically my entire natural life. And like I said, this bottle seems kind of blue on the screen, but it's actually like a teal green. The color registration's a little off on this camera. But so we're done with that. I'm actually going to pull these gloves off that have all the oil and stuff on them. And toss those to the side so they won't be in the way again. And now we're going to wipe this bed down with acetone to make sure we get all of that oil off there. So we don't have any adhesion issues with our PEI sheet. I wish my extruder was a little higher, but we'll work with what we have here. So normally I'd be using coffee filters, but I ran out. So we're just going to use a paper towel for now, which isn't ideal, but it's not a problem. For everyday cleaning, you usually only have to use alcohol, but for this we want to use a fairly aggressive solvent to make sure we get all of this oil off of there. We do not want any of this left on there. And acetone is pretty good for doing this kind of stuff. Like I said, for everyday use, like I just use regular old like 91% isopropyl alcohol. That's like great for cleaning after prints. But a periodic rub down with acetone like this does go a long way to like maintaining good adhesion on your PEI sheet. Because if you're like me, like I don't have particularly oily hands or anything, but you do end up touching your build plate when you take prints off and stuff, and you'll get a little bit of oil on there. And depending on the size of the pieces you're printing, it can cause some adhesion issues. But there we go. That looks good. There's no fingerprints. Doesn't appear to be any like lingering oil. We'll even get the edge where I was handling it. And then we'll actually go ahead and wipe the underside of the edge down too. since we were handling this all over. All right, I think that's good. So now, let me clean up my tools. We'll plug the machine back in, and you'll want to do rerun your calibration anytime you do anything like this and have the machine apart. And I'd also suggest, since we were in there kind of pulling on this cable assembly, we're going to go ahead and open up this Rambo case and make sure that everything is still seated properly. The screw is on the side here. So we'll go ahead and open this up. And you see this rat's nest of wires in here. I'm just going to go through and basically press on every connector to make sure that it's still seated properly in the board. And this is it's part of the reason I recommend getting the kit, because now that I assembled this kit, I'm fairly familiar with all these connectors and where they go. But everything feels good. I don't think we really disturbed anything, but it never hurts to check that when you've been twisting cables or putting any tension on them, especially those main power leads that go to your heat bed and hot end. And then we'll just retighten this bolt here to close our Rambo case back up. This is still, you might have seen this this rubber band here. This is kind of my ghetto fix for the I'm using an older version of the cable chains that we printed. And it rubs this zip tie back here, and this has been my fix. This works really well. It's just a rubber band that's in one of the link closures here, just looped in through, and then actually pinch it in the Rambo case here. Admittedly a little ghetto, but it works good, and saves me printing the new version of the cable chain pieces out, just because I haven't had time to do it. I do need to do that, though. I would recommend using the new pieces. But you see, as a makeshift fix, works pretty good. I just pinch it between the pieces of the Rambo case there. It's actually very secure in there. And just puts like enough upward tension on the that chain as it articulates that it doesn't rub against anything or cause any problems. Works nicely. But all right, so there's our machine reassembled. We made sure we're not going to start a fire when we plug it back in. So we'll go ahead and give it some power and rerun our calibration and see how much noise this thing makes. So there's our power. And we didn't get the min temp error, luckily, because we were at 17 degrees, or 16. So the first part of the calibration, if none of you guys have ever done this, it's a fairly straightforward process. The first thing it asks you to do is to move the... Yeah, it is a little janky, Joseph. It works, though. Hopefully I didn't get too damn far. We're going to skip some steps here. That's why you don't rotate the knob too much when you're doing that. But it has you bottom those out until you hear the motor skipping steps like that. And then it'll start the self-calibration process. Pretty straightforward. The only thing we didn't do is we didn't put the zip ties back in here, which some guys leave the zip ties off. I don't know. I prefer to have them on there. Get this positioned a little better. Making wrinkles. But that's basically it. You see, it's not too bad of a process. Oh, it definitely makes more noise. Yeah, it definitely makes that vibration noise that I remember from. Stick a piece of paper on the heat bed. What is that for exactly? I'm sorry, let me catch up on chat here. All for the first 4-point check? Okay. I got you. Oh my god. It is so loud now. Because that's primarily movement in the x-axis, but I guess that being a metal on metal connection, and then as soon as I touch the heat bed, it's not as loud, like just resting my finger on it. But yeah, that's definitely that kind of wicked that wicked resonation that I remember from when this was new. That's why I didn't think this lubricant would really help with that. If you'd use like a thicker lubricant, I could see that helping, because it would kind of restrain those vibrations of the ball bearings. Yeah, Coral, I think that sometimes. I do say we a lot. I don't know why that is. Josh, so in summary, we should have left the IGUS in place. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't recommend anybody do this. Like, I'm not doing this to advocate against, like, using the IGUS bushings. I just want to do a video here in the next few weeks about, like, how I feel about the upgrade, because it's something I still get a lot of questions about. Yeah, like John just said. This is just to compare the before and after, now that I have a ton of experience with the IGUS. And hopefully, I'd like to get my hands on a reasonably decent quality decibel meter to do some tests. Because I can test it while I have these back on. And then I'll probably switch back to the IGUS. I might even try, I think there's a new IGUS bushing that's out that is one of the cased. I forget where I put them. It's one of these cased bushings that has the aluminum casing on it that are dimensionally the same as the default ones, so we can actually use those in all the locations on here. So I might try those out, but I'd like to put them back on these factory rods, and then whenever I switch back, I'd like to go ahead and have a pair of the anodized aluminum ones from IGUS to try out, to see how that helps with, like, the tolerances. And then I'd also like to get a pair of just kind of standard higher end polished rods that are chromed. Josh said the only issue with the cased ones. Oh, they're not available in the UK. I think those those other ones are very new. Like, this is one of the older style cased bearings or bushings. And I think these have been around for a little while. But I think those ones that are, I think it's 15 millimeter, that are 15 millimeter, I think they're relatively new. Like Aaron said, the Igus rods aren't as good as the Mitsumi rods. I've heard that. I would assume that's the case. The Igus ones aren't very expensive, really. Jacob, what was your comment that you're referring to here? Has anyone... there's actually quite a few dampening options. I went back and found your other comment. Like, that did save a lot of noise for me. Like, this table is actually terrible. This is a relatively thin-topped wooden table, and it acts like an additional resonator for the machine. Because, like, if I'd set it on the concrete floor down here, it's quieter, for sure. That's why I mentioned earlier, like, some people get, like, concrete pavers, and they'll actually put little gel dampeners between the machine and the paver, and then between the paver and the surface that it's on, and it cuts down those vibrations that get transmitted through everything quite a bit. But no, the machine definitely makes more noise. I don't need any scientific equipment to tell you that already. I think the bulk of the noise does come from the those Y-axis bearings. I agree, Joseph. I would like to actually get a set of the Igus rods because the sample they sent is nice. It's a nice like anodization on there. Is that the right word? They're anodized nicely. It's not that kind of like coarse anodizing that you see on some aluminum parts. Necro asked, does the resonance affect the prints at all? Not that I'm aware of. The prints I did initially, like after I installed assembled the kit, were fantastic. Like the prints that this thing will give you with a completely default setup are fantastic. That's why, like, for the vast majority of people, the Igus bushing upgrades aren't really to improve the performance at all. It's just to reduce the noise that the machine makes. Some people feel comfortable running in like the low power mode, which will cut the noise a little bit, but I don't like doing it. I don't like running in the low power mode because you run the risk of like skipping steps if you end up having any binding because it's sending lower voltage to the motors. So yeah, and like Aaron said, if no one's ever seen those, there's things called NEMA dampers, where these stepper motors have 4 attachment screws, and you basically have a plate that attaches to the motor that has another plate on it with a damper material in between those 2 plates, and it actually dampens the motor to the thing that it's mounted on, which again does help reduce that resonant vibration noise that you get quite a bit. I need to order some of those. I kind of forgot. They dropped off my radar for a little bit, but I do need to get some of those. And like Aaron said, yeah, only use them on the X and Y. You don't want to use those. I don't know if they'll even fit on the Z-axis, but you don't want to put those on your Z-axis. Is that the reason? I actually don't know. Oh, Gusner, are they the newer ones, or did they already exist and really nobody was talking about them, or are they relatively new? I just had never seen the cased ones that were dimensionally the same as the old bearings, and I didn't know if that was like because I guess is fairly responsive to the community. Oh yeah, there's definitely noise from the bearings. I had said I plan on printing like 200 hours or so with this setup, but don't know if I'll make it that long. I'll try. It does help a little bit. Like, I have the false walls for the set over here, and they're kind of between, like, our living space. Hopefully they help a little bit. But, like, I'm not going to print anything on stream today, I don't think. I want to keep this relatively short. But I'll print some more of the sewer game tiles and stuff today, I think. And see how loud it gets, because they have a lot of relatively short, fast movements on them. Aaron, I think one of the first things are more bearing holders. I should probably do that. That probably isn't a bad idea. I should probably print off like a tray of them and just go ahead and like knock out 9 or 12 of them. Just to have them on hand. Because I don't think they take that long to print. I think the 3 we did on stream and they only took about 30 or 40 minutes for a set of 3. Your axes are perpendicular. Hopefully. Oh, no, that's right. It's not done yet. Print some earplugs out of some flexible material. Could do that. Yeah, I do need to do that. I need to print the new heat bed cover. So I can get rid of my, what did somebody say? My janky rubber band solution. All right, what's the verdict? Yay, your axes are perpendicular. We didn't F our machine up. So now, I wish they would change it so you don't need to run the V2 calibration. So now, like, we should run the V2 calibration to set our Z height, which I imagine we didn't change that at all. We shouldn't have anyway. I guess we can go ahead and do that so we complete the entire process here. So we'll go ahead and move this up away from the heat bed. Just go to move axis, and we're going to move the Z up a bit. And we'll go to preheat for PLA, and we'll load some filament in this, and run our V2 calibration to set our Z height, which is the height from the nozzle to the heat bed. And that's pretty much it for this entire procedure. Like I said, I'm not suggesting that anybody needs to do this. I'm not suggesting that you need to rip your IGUS bushings out. But I guess this video could be useful because you could basically use this video to install the IGUS bushings because the procedure is basically the same, especially if you're going to be using the bearing holders. Because like I said, there's a few steps that we did that actually make it quite a bit easier if you're not going to use those bearing holders, because you don't have to remove the heat bed from that X frame. I guess we'll go ahead and use this green for the V2 because it is easier to see. And we'll get our holders back on here. Put them on the right sides. Be useful. And I'm still using my my little piece of PVC. These are the, if anybody has problems with this, these are the spool holders that it comes with. And I cut a piece of 3/4 inch PVC that goes between those, and it makes it a lot easier. Because like some rolls, like this roll here, actually has indents, and these default spool holders will not work with these little AIO rolls. So I have my little piece here, and then I just cut little pieces of cardboard that kind of grip this. And it's not as important for regular spools, but when you're running some of the smaller sample spools, like I've been using this as my little sample spool holder because it works. and I haven't had the time to print another one out. So here's our filament. We'll go ahead and chop the end off of this. And I also use this little filament guide that I printed out. It's pretty handy. And we're preheated, so we'll just stick it in the top here, lead it in the PTFE tube, go to load filament, it'll pull it down inside there. Pretty easy. Yeah, with the zip ties, we can throw the zip ties in. Let me grab some. These are handy to have for a number of reasons, but these small ones, I think you can use bigger ones, but these 4-inch zip ties, just regular 4-inch, are nice and small, and they fit in these slots nicely. I think this is what the default sizes were that came with the kits, but I ran out of those a while ago. And you just stick them through those little slots. And I do actually tighten these up. You see, they just go through little slots there. Nothing too crazy. All right, all right. You see our filament loaded properly, extruded nicely. This is the AIO PLA. I know I push that stuff all the time, but it's freaking great. I love it. It prints so nice. I know something we didn't really mention, but our belt tension is still good, mainly because we didn't mess with it at all. And let me try to adjust the settings on this camera so you can see the screen. There we go. Gotta turn that gain down. One time in life you don't want gains. Alright, so this is actually, I think, a good ways down on my card. This is the old card. You want to go to print from SD. And like I said, it's clear on the bottom. This is my other card, the Flash Air. I have folders, and it's all organized nicely. But I think there's like, oh my god, there's probably 250 prints on this card, and they're not organized. So way down here, all the default prints are still on here. So we have the V2 calibration, and this is one thing to keep in mind. I have a 0.35 millimeter nozzle on here, and this is actually sliced for the 0.4. So this isn't going to be exact. So if you're in a situation like this, ideally you should download that file. Like I should do the same. You should download that file and reslice it for the nozzle and stuff that you're using. But like I've already done this quite a few times, and if you get it close here, you can then tweak it when you actually print something that's sliced for the nozzle you're using. Again, not ideal, but it is a way you can do it. Oh, that noise. Oh, that noise. That noise is real. Oh, damn, we're hitting our zip ties. So what you want to do is after this starts printing, you come in here to your live Z adjust, and you're basically going to roll this up. Like I'll jump to approximately where it should be for this. And what you want to do is actually watch the print until you get the... Oh, it looks like our live Z is actually a little bit different. Oh, snap. That feels about right. But basically, there are some images you can look up on the internet. It's always easiest for me by feeling it. You want it to be slightly pressed against the heat bed. Yeah, that feels good there. We'll run that one more time and just double check it. But you actually have to run... That's the thing about the Z height, and I wish they would change it. I wish it would just... whoops. I wish they would just change it so it saved it... Well, I guess you can do your own file, but basically the G code, I think, at the end of that file actually saves your live Z adjustment. And like I said, we'll rerun that quick just to test it. But that felt really good overall. Bjorn, prediction, Nillabean will not keep these bearings. I have a feeling that is going to be the case, Bjorn. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, this SD card is the original one I had. This one is messed up as far as, like, organization. It's pretty bad. They're just all dumped in that folder because I was an idiot. And it makes it a little tough to navigate through. But yeah, there's a lot of files on there. And the worst part is, like, a lot of those files are sliced for different filaments and nozzle combinations. So unless I happen to remember what I sliced them at, it's not particularly useful to have those files around still. All right, we cleared the zip ties. That is something, when we first did the first print, the heads, where the heads of these zip ties are, actually does kind of matter. You want to make sure they're on the outside and not sticking up, because that actually bumped the build plate a little bit. Our purge strip looks nice. I know it's tough to get everything in the shot here. But we get in here to live Z adjust. And yeah, overall that feels good. That's what she said. But no, like, obviously our nozzle has a round hole in it, and you basically, like, if you can visualize the extrusion on the build plate itself, you want nice round sides on the extrusion and then a slightly flattened top and bottom. But overall that doesn't look bad at all. Doesn't seem bad. Not bad. And it looks like we're right at I know you can't see that at all. Negative 1.15, which is actually quite a bit lower than it was before. I don't know why that is exactly, but that is what it is. Maybe there is some, like, minor dimensional difference between the old bearings and the IGUS bushings. Because, I mean, that's a fairly trivial amount, but And something like that live Z adjust, I guess you would end up noticing it, since that's such a touchy adjustment. But no, there you have it. We have successfully regressed here to the noisy MK2. And it instantly brought back all the memories I had of first running the printer. For better or worse. Johnny asks, am I still on my original PI sheet? Yes, I am, sir. And it's still in fairly good shape. I did scratch it up and mar it up a little bit when I first started printing because I was a bit of an idiot. And I was just kind of like being too aggressive, like trying to get prints off. But no, it seems to hold up really well. And ever since I did like the sanding, like if anyone wants to watch it, I did a video on like resurfacing the PEI using very, very fine grit sandpaper and a little bit of acetone. Doing that really did pretty up the surface appearance of it. Like it's nice and like you can see in that shot. It's in pretty good shape. There's a couple marks on it here and there. Some of that's dust. But overall, no, my PEI sheet's still in really good shape. I'm hoping to use it as long as possible because it looks like a pain in the ass to change. Let me go back through some messages here. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had planned for today. Like I said, I'm gonna do some printing today, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I know I like was a little ambitious saying I'd like to print like 100 hours or 200 hours with these and compare them, but it might be the case that I do like a 5 or 6 hour print here, and might have all the information I need. It's possible that I'll be swapping these back today, depending on how noisy they are. John, yeah, like I'm just catching up on comments here. John was saying if there's no material in the filaments, it's PLA. Yeah, I'd like to do a video on like coming up with a file management naming convention to maybe help, because it does get a little frustrating if you're like me and you switch nozzles for different things and you have like I still only print with PLA and it has become an issue. Managing like different settings and different combinations of filament and nozzles and stuff, because some filaments just require slightly different settings, and yeah, just keeping like all your files that you have sliced already organized in a way that kind of makes sense, because it's easy like if you're doing everything now, it's fairly easy like if you're slicing things and printing them immediately and then you're not going to print them again, it's not too bad. But like me with some of the terrain things, like I'll get midway through a project and need a piece that I had sliced maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I might not necessarily remember exactly what nozzle or what settings it was sliced at. And it would be nice to have a relatively simple naming convention for the files, without like some really verbose, 300 character file name to keep track of everything. But if anybody's done that, I'm open to hear some of the things you've come up with. Mikolas asked, so the original bushings, well, the bearings, the originals are bearings actually, are installed now. That is correct. Just in the y-axis, I still have my IGUS bushings in the x-axis, which I don't have any problem with. I think they're absolutely fine. And I don't think there's necessarily any problems with the y-axis, but yeah, like I said, I wanted to try them out just to like do kind of a retrospective on the before and after. after I've printed with the IGUS bushings for about 800 hours, I think. I haven't checked the machine in a while, but I think we're rated like 1,000 or just over 1,000 hours of print time on this machine. And I would guess about 800 of them were with the IGUS bushings in the y-axis. John, that's basically what I've been doing. John said basically any file older than 5 weeks needs sliced again. Yeah, that's basically the system I'm on. Not because I've really like chosen to do that, but it's just kind of like I don't want to waste time like printing something and it turned out kind of crappy. I did it the other day. There's some files where I had slightly tweaked extrusion multipliers because of I had stringing on some superfine details, and that was with a different filament. And then this AIO doesn't need it because it doesn't string, and it's kind of, if you've ever messed with like extrusion multipliers, they're fairly sensitive. And yeah, the print just like came out really shitty, and I couldn't use it. And it was like, it wasn't terrible, but it was like a 4 or 5 hour print, so it was all wasted time. What is my first impression going back? It is louder. I can say that with no hesitation. It is definitely louder. As soon as like 3 seconds into that calibration, I could tell. It just like there's a lot of resonant noise. Like you can just tell it's like metal on metal with a rigid plate attached to the whole ordeal. Stray just said, Nilla, you're growing. Congratulations on 2,000 subs. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm surprised. Like I didn't really comment on it, but we hit a new record here. I forget what the peak was, but I think we had like 87 people watching. Craziness. Crazy. I'm glad people like to sit and watch me mess with my printer, but I don't know why you do. I'm glad you do. I'm glad people like to come in and hang out for a while. But yeah, that's definitely a record. I think our old record was about 75 concurrent viewers. But no, it's very cool that we've been growing. I'm glad that I've been like able to help people with things, and because when I started this, I was a complete and utter, like, I'm sure there's a lot of new people here, being that we have so many people, but I started this channel, I think, a little over 3 months ago. Like, it has not been very long. It feels like I've been doing this for a while, but yeah, I think it was only in like the beginning of November or end of October, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, I haven't been doing this very long. It's kind of crazy. It's gotten to the point it has already. Drink. I know. I wish. I need to get some more rum. Damn it. I should do that today while I'm out. But no, it's crazy we've grown so much already. I've told this story before, but like I still haven't done it. You can claim your name like YouTube/something. Unfortunately, there's some chick that does burlesque dancing that already has YouTube/Nillabean. So I can't get that, which is kind of frustrating. So at some point here, we might be doing like a slight rename of the channel so I can get the slash whatever that kind of makes sense for the channel. But yeah, it's just funny to me. I remember a relative asked about me doing stuff on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, because I assumed, like, it used to be the case that if you had a username, it would just like basically give you slash your username. But I guess that changed a long time ago. And I told them to go check me out. It's like, yeah, YouTube/Nillabean. I think my oh no, I did kind of preemptively, like, my overlay says /Nilla3D. Because I think, like, I'm open to feedback, but I think that's what I'm gonna end up like renaming the channel to, is Nilla3D, so I can have youtube.com/Nilla3D. Makes it a little bit easier than whatever the channel name is. It's like a string of like 15 numbers and letters. It's kind of frustrating. But Nillabean 3D. I mean, that's not bad, but it's so long. So long. Nilla3D is nice and short. Plus, my Twitter is at Nilla3D already. It would just make it consistent, like, across everything. But we'll see. I need to do that soon. But the story was, no, I remember you have to reach 100 subs to claim your name, like, to even apply. And I remember when I first started thinking like, oh my God, I'm never going to get 100 subs. I'm never going to be able to like claim my name. And then here we are like a few months later at like almost 2,100. It's kind of crazy. But no, it's yeah, first world problems. Definitely. Definitely a first world problem. Fron, I just got back. What did he do? What we did, we actually, for my own like investigative purposes, we had the Igus bushings. There I am with the we. I, Nillabean, had the Igus bushings in the y-axis, and I wanted to switch back to the original linear bearings to try them out for a while to compare now that I have experience with the Igus. But that's what we did. So now we have the original linear bearings that came with the kit back in the y-axis. Still have the Igus in the x-axis, but we switched them back. And they're noisy. They are noisy. They are definitely noisy. I see you, Carl. I see what you're doing there. I haven't played a drinking game in a long time, so it would be fun to play one that was based on me saying things. Because I do it so... It's like so subconscious, I don't think about it. Yeah, don't think about it. What are you drinking? Carl said earlier that everybody should drink every time I say we, because I say we all the time. Like just there, I was like, we did this, we did this, we have this, we have that. I don't know why I do it. It's to be inclusive. I want to make people feel included. We did this together. And to be fair, that's how like most of the experiences on here have been. It has been like a, I don't know, a shared, chaotic, alarming experience that we've all shared together. Drinking games. Yeah, Sparky, I only initially didn't drink on stream or anything because I didn't really know what the YouTube policies were. I didn't want to have to like flag my videos as like for adults or anything like that. But yeah, I'm not opposed to drinking. A lot of the things we've done, again, a lot of the things I've done on here would have been a lot less frustrating if there was drinking involved. But no, some of my favorite YouTubers drink on stream. I can think of a few offhand that always drink on stream. It's not just that they do it sometimes, it's that they always do it. It's kind of like their thing. If any of you have ever seen drinking or Drunkens and Dragons, I love watching that guy, and he's always drinking on stream. Always, always, always. It's to the point where it would feel weird if he wasn't drinking on stream. Prefer toking, less aggressive. I know, I did. Dawn, I did see that. Joel, the 3D printing nerd, he drinks on his streams. And he has like a very like PG family friendly environment over there. And even he drinks. So if he can do it, surely I can do it. Cuz like I don't like drink excessively or anything, but I do or curse excessively, but there are some words that happen on here. We can start a print. Shut up. I'm like so self-conscious about it now. Because these things should be sliced properly. Let me take a look at what I have on here. That's sliced at 5 micron or 50 microns, so we don't want to do that. I don't have a lot on here, honestly. We can try this, I guess. I don't honestly know what it is, but we can start a print. Because I'll just stop it then. But yeah, I'll do like an actual print to give everyone an idea of just how noisy these damn things are. You can definitely tell I wiped the heat bed down with acetone. Stuff sticks really good again. And there we're at 90. Hot damn. Wasn't even doing anything and we got to 90. You should test all the bearings and all the bearing holders. Josh said I do. This is like kind of a ghetto cam mount. This was an old just like desk lamp. It works well. I've actually like gotten used to it. There's not there's not enough 3D models of Nicolas Cage. Hey, what's up, Daryl? Oh yeah, Joseph. There are different bearing holders. Uh, I actually haven't looked. When I printed these, I think there was only 3 different ones, and I had talked to Aaron about it, and apparently some of the other ones have clearance issues because yeah, the channels that they have cut in this upright are the tolerances are very tight for some reason. I don't know why they made the tolerances so tight for that area where the bearings travel through. I guess because they only have them zip tied, uh, but Aaron said that I guess he had printed out other ones and they have some clearance issues potentially. So that's why I printed these out. These are the ones that Aaron made, and I tried them and they worked fine. So I didn't really look around too much more. I think you have 2 chats going right now. Is the chat double posting? Oh, that damn thing. Let me start and stop the chat real quick. Or stop and start.